We thank Ms. Hibler for this presentation. Now, being it is Black History Month, I was told to speak about a famous Black St. Lucian, or famous St. Lucian. Now, I am sure you are quite acquainted with the Nobel Prize. Almost every year, a Nobel Prize, or the Nobel Prize is presented to people who have made contribution, a worldwide contribution. The Nobel Prize, I think just last year was won by Gorbachev. At least he won one of the Nobel Prizes because it was said that he won it for peace. There are a few black men who have won the Nobel Prize. And prior to 1979, we have had only a few black men who had won the Nobel Prize, but only in the area of peace. You know, the Nobel Prizes are given for various achievements, science, literature, economics, and so on. But up to 1979, all the black men, probably about 4 of them who had won the Nobel Prize, it was for peace. Now, winning it for peace is more like what we'll call an honorary presentation. We had Ralph Bunche. We had a gentleman, I can't remember his name, one of the tribal leaders in Africa. We had Dr. Martin Luther King had won it. And then we had recently Nelson Mandela. Now, we had only one West Indian to have ever won the Nobel Prize. And that was in 1979. One West Indian won it. And this West Indian became the first black man to have won the Nobel Prize in a category other than peace. He won the Nobel Prize in economics. And this famous West Indian is none other than Sir Arthur Lewis. Sir Arthur Lewis was born in Castries, St. Lucia in 1915. There were not many schools in the West Indies as there are today. For children had the chance of good education, and even fewer could have hope to go to a university. For poor boys, the only hope was the island scholarship, which in St. Lucia was awarded only every other year. Fortunately for the young Arthur, his parents were school teachers, and they were able to help educate their son. But his father died when the boy was only 7 years old, leaving his mother to bring up 5 sons, 4 of whom became professional men. Arthur was a quiet, studious boy, and no one was surprised when at the age of 13, he passed his school certificate examination and gained many distinctions. His ambition was to go on to a university, but at 13, he was too young to sit the examination for the biennial scholarship. "Come back when you are a little older," said the headmaster. "I will," answered the boy, and went off to work as a typist clerk in the St. Lucia Department of Agriculture. He kept his word, and a few years later sat for the scholarship examination. To his mother's great joy, he won the scholarship and the way to the university. And the way to the university was open to him. He left St. Lucia in 1933 and sailed for England, where he entered the London School of Economics. 3 years later, he won a Bachelor of Commerce, being awarded first-class marks in 7 of his 8 subjects. This was a most outstanding achievement. Like many young men fresh out of university, he had not quite decided what he would do. He applied for the post of accountant to Port of Spain City Council, but did not get the job. So he stayed on in England and continued his studies, finally obtaining a doctorate. During his time, he lectured at Cambridge, at Manchester, and at London School of Economics, and was awarded an honorary degree at Manchester University. But his interest lay with the future of his country and with all the islands of the Caribbean. He was deeply aware of the poverty of the West Indian people and of their almost complete dependence on sugar cane as their main crop. He asked himself what could be done to increase the prosperity by developing the islands of the West Indies. How could they be made self-supporting? What step could be taken to achieve their independence? He devoted much of his life to finding the answer, writing many books on the subject and offering his advice to leading political thinkers. He became the most celebrated scholar on economics in the West Indies. Today, his reputation is worldwide, and as an authority on economics affairs, had advised in sought by such international organizations as the United Nations. In 1958, Arthur Lewis was appointed principal of the University of the West Indies. At the time, this center of higher education was still young, and Lewis had the responsibility of molding its future development. It was an exciting challenge to his skill as an educational administrator. As an economist, he realized the importance of raising the educational standard of his people. Equally, he believed that the prosperity lay in unity. When in 1962, the college achieved full status and became the University of the West Indies, Arthur Lewis was made Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies in the cradle of the West Indian nationhood, he said. It is the only place in the West Indies which has brought together young people from every corner of the West Indies. The following year, that was 1963, in which he was knighted by the Queen, he left the Caribbean to become a professor at Princeton University in the United States. But service to the West Indies called him again, and from 1970 to 1973, he became head of the University of the newly created Caribbean Development Bank. From there, he continued. He became head to the United States, where he studied. He was a professor at the University of Princeton. But in 1979, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics, and there became the very first West Indian to have won this prize. Thank
you. Very good presentation from our friends from St. Lucia. I want you to stand now. Thank you. And for the lady from St. Lucia, had said she would vote for me if I was a politician. When the Caribbean comes together, that's one vote I got from St. Lucia. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Do you believe in the Caribbean this evening? Now talk to me. You didn't come here for a joke. Do you believe in the Caribbean? I want you to say one Caribbean.
One Caribbean.
Put your hand in the air, fold your fist, and let's say one Caribbean. Come on, do that. Now if you really believe it, if you don't believe it, sit down. All right? Okay, good. We believe it. Let's put our hands in the air. One Caribbean. Do it again. One Caribbean. Now say this for me. I am Caribbean. Say it again. I am Caribbean. I love the Caribbean. Say that again. I love the Caribbean. Say Caribbean people must unite or perish. Let's say one Caribbean again. One Caribbean. One Caribbean. One Caribbean. You can sit down now. Now listen, we need, let me say something. Caribbean peoples are too conservative. We need to shake this old British stuff off of our back and to let loose. You understand what I'm saying? We sing conservative like the British. We sing conservative like the British. We talk like the British. We tend to do things like the British. We're too conservative. It's time that we get some of this African stuff and shake this conservative stuff off of our back. It's time that Caribbean peoples do that. I go to some churches, That's why I enjoy going to North American churches where the people really, you understand what I'm saying? They really get on, you know what I mean? Right. And that's why what we call in the Caribbean Shango Baptist, I love to go to the Shango Baptist churches sometimes because they really get down, they worship, They got some African in them, you know what I mean? But the English people tell you that what's African is bad. You must not express yourself. So I grew up believing that dancing was wrong. I didn't even know it was in the Bible that when the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea, the folks danced. But the British folk taught us to be very conservative. And so you come to sessions like these and you sit down. You don't clap. You keep quiet. You shut your mouth. Now listen, this is a loose session here this evening. We want you to lively up yourself. Good. We want you to enjoy yourself this evening. And we want you to leave here this evening with some knowledge. Man, I really miss John McQueen, Because John McQueen used to always be giving those little snippets, little ideas on Caribbean peoples coming together. And I'm sure that if John was here this evening, John would have been telling us how Caribbean people should come together. I really miss him this evening. But we're going to leave here this evening more conscious than we really came.